Warning: some contents may be disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. I think I avoided something really bad. So, there's a small forest near my house, probably about 200 meters by 200 meters, almost a square. There's like a country road on the side that farmers use, and there are like small roads into the forest, so it's divided into 4 parts. It's not remote, but not super busy either. There's a main road next to it, but hardly any cars pass. One part of the forest, the back left section, has always creeped me out ever since I was a kid. The rest of it feels fine, but that one area, something always felt wrong. Anyway, last year, 2024, I was walking along that part of the forest. I was a teenager and walking alone. The place is like safe to take walks and all of that, and just to mention, I live in Slovenia. The path curves a bit so you can't see too far ahead. I turn a corner, and suddenly, there's a man right in front of me, about 6 meters away. I didn't hear him coming at all. No footsteps, no rustling, no nothing. It was like he appeared out of nowhere. He was an adult man, definitely not in his 20s or 30s. He was older. I immediately felt like, oh my god, it's an adult and a weird guy. And I'm a girl, I need to watch out. And I didn't turn my back to him. I just kept walking, super aware of where he was. I looked back and he was staring at me. I told myself that if he starts walking toward me, I am sprinting straight into the field next to us. Eventually, I turned forward again and I didn't see him anymore. I assumed that he just walked away. But something felt off, so I looked again, and he was in the forest itself, not on the path. He was walking through the woods in a section that people don't usually walk in, especially not during spring or summer when it's full of underbrush. He was walking in the direction that I had come from, and he was holding a roll of duct tape, the thick gray kind that every dad has for some reason. I stared at him. I didn't want to lose sight of him. It felt extremely wrong and creepy. I mean, who the hell brings duct tape into the forest and then hides in the trees? And then walks into the direction back into the forest towards a teenage girl? Then, a little while later, he shows up again, this time riding a small electric scooter that he literally had in the same bushes. Like he came back with duct tape and looked at me. I was looking at him, and then he went back and came back with a goddamn scooter. I was heading back by then, and I knew there was no way I was letting him behind me. I pretended to tie my shoelaces until he went far enough, and then he rode off in the opposite direction. But he kept stopping and looking back at me as he went. There are fields around, so it was very visible where he was after he drove off. I was beyond creeped out. The whole thing felt like a horror movie setup. A teenage girl alone, creepy man in the woods, hiding in the trees with duct tape? I can't stop thinking about how bad that could have turned out if I hadn't been alert. I didn't report it at that time. I don't remember if I even had my phone with me. I was so focused on staying safe that calling the police didn't register. Also, at first, I was like, okay, maybe he was on a walk. But duct tape? Walking in the bushes and trees? That's crazy. For some stupid reason, I didn't tell my parents. I don't even remember what I was thinking. I just know that I didn't feel any fear, anxiety, or panic. But I was just very aware. For some reason, I was thinking, okay, maybe I'm overreacting, overthinking stuff. but I was thinking about it today, and I literally felt so much anxiety and fear because God knows what could have happened. I'm very thankful that I didn't have headphones on because I usually have them on, but this time I didn't for some reason. I don't know if that was my guardian angel or something, but I am just extremely thankful. Hi, I'm not sure if this is the right place to put this, since I don't really frequent this kind of subreddits, but my therapist said that writing and sharing my experiences would be helpful, so here it goes. A few months ago, I went to my local Freshco to get groceries. It was a bit late in the afternoon. I work until 5:30, and when I get off, it's pretty crowded. So I like to wait until it's around 7 before I get in. I don't want to have to deal with that many people, as I do have social anxiety. It was pretty late when I got there, and not too many people in the store anymore. Since it would be closing in an hour, I go about my normal shopping path, grabbing my usual stuff and checking a few things on sale until I made it to the cereal aisle. I was eyeing the oatmeal crisp, my favorites, which had gone up an entire $1. While I was contemplating if it was still worth it for the price, I began to feel an eeriness around my body, that feeling you get when you're being watched, and turning to look down the aisle, lo and behold, there was a guy staring at me. As I looked his way, he quickly snapped his head to the shelf in front of him, which would have been slightly convincing had it not been empty. It may sound ridiculous, but there this creep was, pretending to shop while staring at an empty shelf. I tense up a bit, already feeling my anxiety building up. I thought he was going to ask me for my number or something, but he kept facing forward, looking at the empty shelf. Feeling weirded out by him, I quickly get what I need from this aisle and I move on to the next one. I try to get back to focusing on my shopping, but the man comes into the aisle about a minute after I do, and this time, standing a bit closer to me. Thinking it might all just be in my head, or that he'll get the hint if I move aisles again, I backtracked to the aisle that I was in before, hoping that he would leave me alone. However, I was far too optimistic about that, since he followed me back to that aisle and was only a few feet away from me at this point. My anxiety was through the roof now, so I decided just to leave and come back tomorrow for the rest of the things that I needed. This guy was starting to scare me, and I'd rather not spend the rest of the time here looking over my back for a creeper like him. I quickly pushed my cart to the checkout and pay. Luckily, since it was so late, there wasn't a line and I was able to check out rather quickly. But the downside to that meant that he was able to check out quickly too. But in my anxious mind, all I could think about was getting into my car where no one could get to me and then driving home. And I did just that after checking out. I power walked to my car, threw the groceries in the back seat, and then drove off. Of course, I had only got about half of what I needed, but more than enough to make it till tomorrow afternoon, when I could just come back again and buy the rest. There should be no reason why that guy would be there tomorrow, since he was shopping today, so I thought that I could rest easy. The next day, I went back to Freshco to get the frozen peas and microwavable pizzas that I was planning on getting yesterday. I also decided that I did in fact want my oatmeal crisp, even if the price was more expensive. I walked into the store and immediately went to the cereal aisle once more for my prize, only to stop dead in my tracks when I turned into it. He was there again, in the exact same spot where I first noticed him staring at me. I quickly turned the corner. The oatmeal crisps were expensive anyways. I decided to just get the frozen food and leave before the guy spotted me. I quickly passed the aisle he was in and quickly grabbed the things that I needed before heading to the checkout again. There was no line, but the issue was, since there was no one else there, when the man turned the corner, he noticed me instantly. I had been looking over my shoulder a bit to keep an eye out for him, but now that I knew he saw me, I turned my head back quickly, paid for my food, and quickly walked away once more back to my car. I did not have the nerve to look behind me when I shoved my food into my car and I drove off, which might have been my biggest mistake. I didn't pay attention to anything but getting home, thinking that I would be safe there. But over the next few days, I realized my mistake. I started seeing him hanging around near my street, sometimes late at night across the street from me, just sitting there on the ground, staring at my house. I, of course, called the police, but since there wasn't enough evidence and they didn't spot him when they arrived, they said that they couldn't do much, but that they would send a car to patrol my neighborhood more frequently. After giving its description, they told me that they would keep an eye out for him. But that did little to calm my nerves. The more prominent patrols did work, however, because I started to see him less and less around my street once the police started frequenting it. I had opened up to my friends about this, and one of them made a good point, saying that if he was actively avoiding the police, chances are that he knows what he was doing is wrong and probably has experience with this kind of thing. But according to the police, they don't have anyone matching his description as a known offender. But seeing him less did calm my nerves a bit. But for the time being, I decided to order my groceries online. Is it more expensive? Yes, but I would rather be safe and poor than putting myself into potential danger just to save a few bucks. Things started to become normal again, not like how it was before, but I had stopped peering out my windows at night in fear that he was out there and was able to sleep a bit more comfortably again. But over the span of 2 weeks, the police patrols have become less frequent until they stopped altogether. I was afraid that he would come back after realizing that the police were no longer patrolling the area. But so far, I haven't seen him yet. Are there any good tips for home security that I can do? Because I am no longer feeling safe again, and I'm not sure that I will anytime soon. Hey everyone, I'm posting here because something really unsettling happened recently, and I would appreciate any advice or thoughts. I also don't want to get too specific with location details, so I'm just saying the general area. On the night of April 28, 2025, my mom and I were walking home from dinner in Victoria, BC at around 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. We don't have a car, so we were walking along the side of the road when a white SUV type vehicle showed up behind us. We moved over to let it pass, but instead, it stayed right behind us, inching along slowly. And as soon as that happened, we were a little freaked out. Continuing, when we turned onto the main street near our home, the vehicle turned with us and parked across the street. The driver didn't exit or turn the car off, he just sat there. It made us uncomfortable enough that instead of going straight home, we waited for the bus and took that to avoid revealing where we lived. Over an hour later, we returned. The SUV was still there, now turned off and empty. As we passed it on foot and we were coming close to our home, we were kind of behind this van parked in front of our place, so we couldn't really see the driver get back in or where he came from. We just heard the car unlock and start up again. We were super freaked out, so we stayed hiding behind the van. At this point, I had mentioned to my mom that if we ducked down slightly, the driver wouldn't be able to see us go into our home. So we did that, and I made the mistake of turning off our porch light and then turning it back on. A minute after that, the car drove away, and since then, we haven't had any problems. Please note that we have had suspicious behavior before, like my bike getting stolen from our backyard, and even people going into our backyard at night. Additional notes was that he was a white male, like over 50 years old, with dark gray peppery hair, short but slightly overgrown. I only saw his side profile, but he looked overweight with a fuller face. He had no beard or glasses, and from the looks of it, he was wearing a t-shirt. I'm not sure about the color. About the car, it was a white SUV type, maybe Jeep. Not like the big vans, but like a regular stubby car. It looked like a really nice model, and probably more on the expensive side. Thick black front grille, like the heavy bars on Jeeps. Orange headlights. Very quiet engine, so it could possibly be a hybrid or electric. And I specifically remember seeing that he had a document piece of paper on the dashboard sitting up. But I do not remember anything about the license plate. If anyone has any advice on the information that I provided, that would be amazing. I'm really looking for an answer if this was truly someone following us, and if we could possibly be being stalked, or if we are being dramatic. And any deets about what type of car that it was would be amazing. Oh, and one more thing that I wanted to mention is that I did end up looking at articles if there were any weirdos in the past in our area. And there was one article, 1 to 2 years ago, about a lurker ending up in people's backyards or following people. Hi, Miss Creepy Tales. I hope that you're doing well. I'm sending you this story in hopes that you can share this with people and I can get some feedback on my situation. I'm a male and I'm 24 and I would like to keep my name anonymous. I feel a bit awkward writing this story because this is my first time doing something like this, so if there are any mistakes or if things aren't very clear, please forgive me. I'm doing my best. I want to talk about something that I am currently going through. I'm ashamed to share this to my own family and friends because I just don't think that it's normal for a guy to go through this. But I also feel like I have to tell someone because I am feeling anxious and I'm feeling like I'm about to lose my mind. Please don't judge me. So here it goes. I think my roommate is stalking me. It all started in university. I was still living with my parents and I had to travel 3 hours back and forth every single day just to get to uni. It was really a hassle because of the traffic and just the general stress of traveling around my area. When I get to school, I'm already tired, and when I get home, I'm also too tired to do anything else. I was not having a great time at all. I decided that I needed to do something about it. I talked to my parents, and they said that they would support me financially if I wanted to move to a place closer to uni, but they gave me a certain budget, and if the place I found cost more than that, then I would have to figure things out myself. My parents were great, but we just didn't have a lot of money, which is understandable. I agreed, and I set out searching for places and even talked to some of my friends at school. Unfortunately, all the places were above the budget and I was not sure what to do. I didn't want to take a part-time job at that point because there were a lot of schoolwork to be done and I don't think it would work well for me. I was seriously considering just canceling the whole idea. But 2 days later, I got a text from a guy named Aiden. Let's just call him that for the sake of the story. He was talking about how he heard I was looking for a place. He said that he was also thinking of doing the same since he also lived a bit far. He explained that if we lived together, we can halve the cost. I thought that it was perfect and it was the best idea ever. I even scolded myself a little for not thinking about getting a housemate. Fast forward, we agreed, found a place, and then moved in together. And to be honest, it was amazing. Gone are the early morning stress from traveling, and when I got home, I had the energy to study and finish homework and papers. Aiden was also great. He wasn't lazy, he was a clean person, he wasn't greedy, he always shared his food and snacks, and we genuinely got along. I thought he was a great housemate. Until he wasn't. It was 6 months in when I started noticing some weird things. One day, Aiden asked me about the comic book that I was reading. I responded, we talked about it, and that was the end of the conversation. But I realized I never mentioned that to him or to anyone, and the comic book I was reading was placed inside the drawer in my nightstand. It wasn't like it was left around the house or even out and about in my room. So, how did he know about it? I brushed it off thinking maybe I did mention it to him and I just forgot. Another instance was that one day at uni, we had an event and we were required to wear a certain color to represent our teams. Aiden asked me if I wanted to borrow a shirt with my assigned color since he says that I don't have that shirt. I responded with, I don't? I don't even know what color shirts I have exactly. So when I checked, he was right. This was seriously starting to freak me out. Why does this guy know so much about my personal belongings? I'm not a messy guy and I never leave my things out or leave my door just open and free for everyone to look into. My clothes are also in my drawers. I was getting so confused and freaked out, I've started becoming hyper aware when Aiden was around. And I have noticed that he stares at me a lot. I know that sounds a bit vain, but I'm serious. He stares a bit way too long and a bit way too intense. The last straw was when one Friday, I got a message from my grandma asking me to come home on the weekend. She wanted me to help her with something at home. I was busy when I got the message, so I opened it, read it, and I just closed it, despite the fact that I haven't replied yet. And just like the klutz that I am, I forgot about it. And my day went on as normal, and I went to sleep. The next day, I wake up and I go to the kitchen to grab some hot chocolate when Aiden asked me what time I was leaving for my grandma's. I was confused at first, but then I remember the text message. The thing is, I am 200% sure that I did not tell Aiden or anyone about it since I myself forgot about the whole thing. The message was already open, so it's not like it was on my screen or something, and even if it was, how would Aiden be able to see it? I lost it. I asked Aiden how he knows, and he gave me a nervous giggle and a stupid excuse how he saw it on my screen. I screamed at him and I told him how that was not possible, and I was trying to pressure him into telling me why he knows personal things about me and if he is snooping around my room when I'm not there or when I'm asleep. He said no, and then he made a dumb excuse in how he needs to go, and then he just left. I packed a bag and I'm spending my whole weekend with my grandma. I made sure to lock my room and I'm here just thinking on what to do. I can't move out yet. There's still 2.5 months left on the lease, and I'm 100% sure that I am not extending the lease after this occurrence. I'm definitely moving out, even if it means that I have to go back to my daily 3-hour travels. But I'm not sure how to proceed with the remaining 2.5 months. Does anyone have any experience with this kind of situation? If you do, what did you do? Please, I would really appreciate any feedback about this. I'll be seeing Aiden again on Monday, and I'm not sure how to interact with him. And I'll update you when something happens. Thank you so much for reading my story. Before I tell my story, I just want to say that I'm aware of how dumb it is to do stuff like this, and I probably won't be doing this for a long time after what happened a few months ago. Anyway, I just really needed to post this because I don't know what else to tell. About a half a year ago, I had the scariest experience of my life. For context, I'm a dumb teenage boy who sneaks out every now and then just to walk around at night. I find something very peaceful walking around after dark, but my parents have never let me stay out past sunset. So, for about a year, whenever school gets hard or just life in general gets stressful, I sneak out and I just walk around for about 2 hours or so. Anyway, the night that I'm talking about began with me deciding to go for another 2 a.m. ritual. I grabbed a sweatshirt, got on my shoes, and once I was outside and hopped the fence to freedom. After I was safely away from my neighborhood, I took one of my usual routes, which is cutting through another neighborhood and walking onto a winding road, where I then walk down the middle of it and head towards a circle of shops and fast food restaurants. I was probably there for a solid chunk of time, just walking in the loop and ending up sitting on a bench. At some point, I picked up a plastic spoon on the ground and I started to grind it against the pavement until the spoon part was half gone out of boredom. This is important later. I was chilling there for a bit before I decided to walk around a bit more, and I eventually ended up at a park like 10 minutes away from my neighborhood, where I usually end off the night just staring off into the sky. The park itself creeps me out sometimes because at night, there's a huge ring of trees surrounding all sides of you, and anyone could watch from the woods. Anyway, shit starts to get real here because I'm staring up into existence, feeling like a philosopher while I'm laying on one of those table benches, when I hear an old man whistle. I probably shot up because I had never had another human interaction on these walks. And then I see this old man, dimly illuminated by a streetlight, are the only entrance of the park. I had seen him before. He's this tall, skinny white guy that walks around our town all day, and I would honestly think he was homeless if he wasn't wearing the same fancy button-up and cargo pants every day. Me and my mom have talked about him, and we think that he's mentally disabled and probably lives with a caretaker. I had an interaction with him once about a year ago that I was walking home in broad daylight when I passed the man who was at that time sitting on a bench. The dude just looks at me and says, "Jesus loves you," with a weird little smirk on his face. I responded with an awkward, "I know," even though I'm an atheist and didn't really think much of it. Anyway, back to the park at night. I just stare at him in that empty parking lot, probably way longer than I should have, because he was already creeping me the hell out. I imagine we were staring at each other for a really long time before he slowly starts walking towards me. And at this point, I am frozen in fear because why the fuck is this old white geezer out with me at like 3 a.m. in an empty park? I am standing up at this point when he gets close to me and just gives me this cheeky grin like he knows something that I don't yet, and I'm still just gawking at him like a fucking buffoon. Have you ever scoffed at a book or movie when the main character is frozen in fear? Well, I have, and I never will again, because at this point I'm more frozen than I have ever been in my life. At some point, after probably like 10 seconds of awkward standing, he just kinda half pats and half grabs my shoulder and reaches into his pocket to pull out a plastic spoon. The same plastic spoon that I was holding about an hour ago at the shop plaza. He just kinda tucks it in my front sweatshirt pocket, and I guess something just makes my mind snap out of my frozen stance because I absolutely fucking book it to the public bathroom and I lock the door. I'm now in this dimly lit bathroom in the middle of the night, and I'm guessing at this time it was past 3 in the morning. I assumed that maybe he would leave once he saw me in my state of panic, but honestly, I don't think he ever left. I ended up looking closer at the plastic spoon, and it was altered. Have you ever seen that one viral AI-generated image where it looks completely normal at a glance, but you can't identify a single thing? If not, just search up the words, "Name one thing in this image." Now, imagine that, except the word carved onto a plastic spoon, but you can't read it or even identify any of the letters. I think that I sat in that locked bathroom for over an hour, just contemplating every single decision that I have made in the past year that led up to that nightmare that I was in at that moment. To be clear, I had no phone or any way of contacting someone because my parents installed Life 360 on my phone and they can see my location whenever. I also had no watch or access to the outside to tell the time. I ended up gaining the courage to unlock the door and just absolutely rocket myself towards the exit of the park. And before I turned the corner, I looked back for a second and I saw a figure sitting on the bench that was right next to the bathroom. This senile old man had waited outside for an hour just to see me one more time. I'm being completely honest when I say that I held a full sprint until I got to my neighborhood, where I caught my breath behind a bush and then snuck back in my house. I haven't gone out at night since that experience, and I don't know if I'll ever sneak out again. I still have the spoon buried somewhere in my wardrobe, but I haven't looked at it in months. Sometimes, I think about how long he was following me, and if it was an isolated incident, or if he had been stalking me on other late-night trips. I would love to hear your guys' opinion on the matter, unless you're here to lecture me about my actions because trust me, I've already learned. Anyway, creepy old man that was stalking me that night, let's not meet again. I'm a young male college student living abroad, and something happened last night that really shook me. A guy waited in the lobby, and when I nodded at him as a polite gesture as I walked past him in the lobby, he followed me into the elevator but didn't press any floor button himself. He stayed in the elevator with me the whole ride, and while in there, he repeatedly invited me to his room in a way that feels like he was plotting something, saying things like, "You are so," and then he kept pressing after I said no. He also asked if I lived alone and if I lived on that floor, which made me really uncomfortable. I told him that I live with my friends, just to avoid giving away too much, and before I left the elevator, I said something with exposed emotion, disgust, uneasiness, and maybe even some fear, because I was creeped out and I regretted that I didn't just stare at him and stood my ground. I don't feel safe walking alone around my place now, and I am planning to report it to the building security since there's CCTV. Has anyone else dealt with something like this? How should I handle it if he tries to approach me again? Should I throw hands with a potential creep? Any advice would be greatly appreciated. Edit. I reported and checked the CCTV footage, and the security team replied not to worry too much, as the condo has a lot of CCTV and high security. Well, I guess there's nothing more that I could do, except move on, I guess. Thank you for all your concern, and you guys stay safe too. So I was telling a coworker the story, and she suggested that I share it here. Sorry in advance if I ramble. I tend to remember random details every time that I tell it. Back when I was about 17, around 2009, I worked as a courtesy clerk at a grocery store, bagging groceries and bringing in carts. My mom and sister also worked there, so the place felt like family. Most of the guys that I worked with were protective of me, which honestly was a blessing because I got hit on by older men all the time. My boss would even follow me home some nights just to make sure that no creeps were trailing me. But one incident, though, has stuck with me. It was an insanely hot day. I'd just finished wrangling a mountain of carts and ducked into the little pizzeria corner of the store to cool down. Out of nowhere, this man in his 20s or 30s came up and handed me his number. He didn't say much, if anything, just walked off. I was too overheated to react. But the next day, a silver minivan pulled up to me outside. I noticed baby shoes hanging from the rearview mirror. The man tried talking to me, and I remember cutting him off and saying, "I'm 17 and I have a boyfriend." Usually, that scared men away. This one didn't. That night, near closing time, my cashier whispered that someone was watching us. I turned, and I saw the same guy from the minivan standing around the corner just staring. I told my night manager, who immediately opened the office door while counting tills to keep an eye on things. The guy eventually left the store, but just waited outside. My manager ended up following me home again that night. A few days later, my aunt randomly texted me, which was unusual because we hardly talked. She sent me to a link to a Craigslist missed connections post and asked if it was about me. And it was. The post said something like this.
Saw you working at the grocery store. You were cute. You wore a bow in your hair, suspenders hanging from your shorts, a bunch of wristbands, and had bright colored hair. Your name tag said Garrett. I'm 40, and I would like to meet up.
The Garrett part really freaked me out because Garrett wasn't me. My coworkers and I used to switch name tags sometimes just to mess with customers and see their reactions. So not only was this guy watching me closely enough to describe my entire outfit, but he also memorized the fake name that I just happened to be wearing that day. I ran to my day manager and I showed him the post, and he immediately replied to it with, "Too young for you," from a parent. After that, things got weirder. I'd see the same silver van around, but sometimes I wasn't sure if it was even the same guy. Once, I rushed inside after spotting it, and suddenly the man was already following me down an aisle. There was no way he could have parked that fast and then gotten inside. When I screamed, he bolted before anyone else saw him. The police got involved and gave me an escort home every night for a week. Eventually, I got transferred to a different store in a different town, and I never saw the van or that man again. Being hit on by creepy older men unfortunately never stopped, but that Craigslist post still gives me chills to this day. I wish I could find it again. It was so unsettling reading how he described me. So, to the man who wrote that Craigslist post about a 17-year-old girl, let's not meet. In 2008, I was 16 and living in a small town where you'd see the same faces over and over. One of them was this man in his mid-30s, scruffy beard, worn-out jacket, someone I'd always assume was just a local drifter. Then, I started noticing him more. He would be outside the shop when I went in after school, leaning against the fence across from the school gates, or walking a little way behind me on my route home. Always just far enough to make me second-guess myself, but always there. One Sunday afternoon, I was walking into town to meet a mate when I saw him at the bus stop. As I passed, he fell into step beside me. "All right, Ryan," he said. I froze for a second. I have never told him my name. He asked if I still lived up by the church, and that was where my street was, but I had never mentioned it to him. Then came more questions. "You usually get back from school around 3:30, right? You still playing football on Tuesdays? Does your mom still work at the post office?" The way he said it wasn't casual conversation. It was like he was checking his facts. I told him that I had to go and I sped up. He just smiled and said, "Don't worry, I'll catch you another time." A few nights later, after a football practice, it was dark and I was walking the quiet route home, and from behind me, I heard that same voice. "Not many people out tonight. It's a good night for a walk." He was standing under a streetlight, hands in his pockets, just grinning. And then he said, "Your bedroom's the one at the back of the house, isn't it?" I didn't answer. I just walked as fast as I could without running. And after that, I started changing routes, times, and everything. I never saw him again after a couple of weeks, but every time that I walk home alone in the dark, I half expect to hear his voice behind me. A few years later, I was flicking through the local paper and I froze. There was his face staring back at me. The article said that he had been arrested for assaulting an elderly woman in her own home. They had a mugshot, and it was exactly how I remembered him. Scruffy beard, dead eyes, and that same unsettling grin. Hello everyone, I'm 32 and female, but this story happened to me when I was around 14 years old, or maybe younger, I can't remember exactly. I have been on this subreddit for a while now, and I am fascinated and a bit sad with how many creepy experiences people go through on a daily basis. So I thought that I would also like to share my own experience. I am the only child in my family, and my parents, despite being supportive and good people, were also very busy. They would take on overtime and extra work just to earn extra cash, and not that I was upset about it. I understood that we needed the money, but this also meant that I was left alone at home multiple times a week. I was raised to be responsible, so my parents never worried about me. And our sweet neighbor, an old lady who knew about my situation, She would check on me from time to time. She even told me that if I wanted to, I can hang out with her in her house and we would have snacks and stuff. I would do that sometimes, but I would just stay at home and do my homework, then watch some movies most of the time. My mom would leave food in the fridge for me to heat up, or when she doesn't feel like cooking, she leaves me money enough for pizza and the tip. One day, on a day my mom didn't want to cook, she left me a note and money on the kitchen counter saying that I can order pizza that night. I was excited because I was actually craving for some. I called the pizza place, ordered, and just sat in our living room couch, watching TV while I waited for it. After maybe 20 to 30 minutes or so, I can't remember, but I heard our doorbell ring. I looked through the peephole and I saw that it was the pizza guy. So I opened it. I took the pizza from his hands, handed him the money, told him how much his tip was so he can deduct that too. He was trying to get the change for me, painfully slowly, and while doing that, he started asking me questions. He asked things like my age, my name, if I were home alone, and I lied and I gave him a random name and age, and I told him that my mom was in the shower. Something about him was giving me the creeps. He looked clean-shaven, wearing his pizza place uniform, and he looked to be around his early 30s. But just his general demeanor was creeping me out. And then he finally got my change, handed it to me while making sure that our hands touched, and he had this weird expression on his face as he said, "You're so beautiful." I just said thanks and I quickly closed the door and locked it. I was young, but as I mentioned earlier, I get left home alone a lot, so my parents made sure to teach me about stranger danger and all of that. I wasn't a dumb child at all. That was raising a lot of red flags for me. But since the ordeal was over, I just shrugged it off, ate my pizza while watching my movie, and I went on with my day. When my parents arrived, I have already forgotten the whole thing and I didn't tell them. The next day, it was the same thing, just me at the house, but this time I had some food to reheat, so I didn't have to order anything. An hour after I got home, I hear our doorbell ring. I was confused. I was not expecting any guest, and our neighbor, the sweet old lady, usually just called to let me know if she has snacks and stuff that she wants me to eat. I had no idea who it was, so I slowly walked to the door and peeped, and to my shock, it was the pizza guy from yesterday. He was holding a box, but I did not order anything at all. My parents weren't also the type to order for me. They would let me do that myself. The man probably heard me walk there because he started saying, "Pizza delivery." I answered and I said, "We didn't order any pizza. I think you got the wrong house." He then answered, "Really? The address on the order was for this house." And again, I tried explaining that we didn't order anything. The man paused for a bit, and then he said, "Well, don't worry about it. I'll just give this pizza to you for free. Just open the door to get it." I told him that I wasn't interested, that I'm full, and just to eat it by himself. He then said that he can do that, but then we would have to share it since he can't finish it by himself, and also as an apology for bothering me. It was obvious that this grown man wants me to open the door and let him in. I told him no, and he actually started twisting the door handle. I screamed, and I ran into my room and I locked myself in there. I hid under the sheets and I don't know when it happened, but I fell asleep. I woke up later when I heard a car pulling up the driveway, signaling that my parents were home from work. I went downstairs, and my mom asked me why there was an empty pizza box on the doorstep. I broke down, And I cried and I told them about everything that happened, even the one from the day before. My mom and dad were furious. My dad called the pizza place and complained to the manager, in which the manager apologized and said that he will take care of it. My dad then called his workplace and said that he would take the next day off. He didn't explain why, but he said he had a family emergency. But I was just excited to have my dad home, really. The next day went on as normal. I went to school, got home, and I locked the door. Now, my family only had one car. So since my mom went to work and my dad stayed at home, there was no car in the driveway because my mom took it with her. So it seemed that there was no adult in the house again. The reason why I'm explaining this is because after an hour from when I got home, I heard a doorbell ring again. My dad and I were in the kitchen making sandwiches when this happened. My stomach just drops. I was sure of who this person was. My dad automatically had a frown on his face, so I think we were thinking of the same thing. He whispered to me to check the peephole first and see if it's the same man that has been bothering me. I did. I checked, and I nodded yes to him. This time, the guy wasn't wearing his normal pizza place shirt. He was wearing a different shirt. My dad swiftly opened the door, which probably startled the guy, and in one swift motion, he grabbed the guy by his collar. I would like to add that my dad is a big muscular man, and not the one you see in gyms, but he is a blue-collar kind of guy. He's big and he's strong. So he holds this guy by his collar and just yells at him, asking him questions on why he is bothering his underage daughter. The guy is clearly flustered and stuttering while making up fake excuses. I can't really remember what excuses he said. My dad's yelling and just the whole commotion makes some of the neighbors start coming out of their houses to see what's going on, even my sweet old neighbor. My dad then threatens the man and then he throws him on the ground. The man scrambles and runs to a car parked nearby and then he speeds off. My dad said that he regrets not holding on to him and calling the cops, but he says that he was swallowed by his anger and that he couldn't think straight. And the good thing is that our sweet old neighbor was smart enough to get the man's license plate, and my dad called the police and reported it. I don't think they ever caught the guy, but the good thing is that I never saw him again. So yeah, this story might not be the creepiest on this subreddit, but it was the scariest thing that has ever happened to me. I can only hope that what happened to the man made him stop what he was doing, because I would not want for anyone else to experience what I did. So, creepy stalker pizza guy, let's not meet again. So to start off, I would like to apologize for some grammatical issues. English is not my first language, and for context, I'm a male. It happened when I was in 5th grade, and because I live in Kyrgyzstan, our school system is not the same as in America. I had first shift. That means that I had school from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. I was the kid that was always heading back to my house after school, but I was always walking with my 2 best friends because we lived near each other. After we got to the point where we would be heading off to different directions, we said goodbye to each other and then we walked in our own directions. It was autumn, so I was dressed in a school uniform with a jacket and a hat. It was quite chilly. We had 7 entrances to the building. Mine was the 7th one. I was living in a good neighborhood in the center of town, so when I started approaching the door to the 7th entrance, I noticed a man that was standing near it. To clarify, on the porch. I had a feeling when I looked at him, telling me not to enter the building with him. And then he looked at me with his empty eyes, and I was scared a bit. So he turned his head at my direction, looked at me, and then entered the building. My mom always told me not to enter the building with other people, so I stayed on the porch, trying to hear if he took the elevator so that I could enter the building alone. As I heard the elevator go up, I entered the building, and thank God, no one was there. I touched the elevator button, waiting. I entered the elevator and I pressed on the 8th floor. As I was going up, I heard the fast footsteps on the staircase because the elevator was near it, so you could hear anyone going up the stairs. It was sounding like he was running, and now I was panicking because I didn't know what to do. I knew he was going to approach me as the doors opened. I started banging on the door, pressing our doorbell. But unfortunately, my older brother was always slow at opening it. So as I was waiting, I looked at the staircase and I saw that man running full speed looking at me. He was so tall, he was like skipping 3 stairs, and I was scared as hell. I started banging. Meanwhile, he was looking at me as he was running. My brother finally opened the first door. But the story doesn't end here. I flew inside, locked the doors, and I told my brother about the situation. Also to mention, I know every neighbor in our 7th building, so I never saw that man. He was also looking not good, a bit unkempt. My brother, who was 16 at that time, 185 centimeters and also a wrestler, opened the door and then approached the man, questioning him about who he is. The man started getting aggressive, and also he grabbed his phone and started acting like he was talking with someone. The man started being rude, aggressive, and in fact my brother was calm asking questions. My brother said to him that he is scaring people who are living here. The man didn't care and he just started cursing. My brother just closed the doors fast and told me to be careful. I'm still scared of entering that building after this story. I don't eat ice cream or popsicles, nor gelato or froyo, or any other kind of frozen dessert of the sort. It's not because I don't like the taste or a dietary restriction, but I feel uncomfortable having them because of something that happened to me when I was younger that turned me away from it. When I, female, was 8, just like any other kid my age, loved ice cream, and I always got excited when I heard the ice cream truck come. So, when I heard it that day, I rushed to my mom's side and I put on my best puppy dog eyes to ask her for ice cream. She sighed, washed her hands because she was cooking, and then took out a $5 bill from her purse and then handed it to me. I said thank you, grabbed my prize, and then ran outside, seeing a few other kids already lined up to the now stopped truck getting their own ice cream. I stared at the menu on the side of the truck, wondering what I could get for $5. I decided on getting a chocolate cone with brownie bits on top. When my turn came, I noticed it wasn't the old man that usually gives us ice cream. It was a younger guy. He had a big smile on his face as I walked up to the truck. "Hi there," he said, in a very cheery, inviting way. "And what's your name?" "I'm Cindy." Not my real name, but I'm just gonna use it for this story. "What a pretty name for such a pretty girl. Would you like some ice cream, Cindy?" "Yes, please," I told him. "Wow, you're so polite," the man said. "Very ladylike of you, Cindy. What kind of ice cream would you like?" "Chocolate, please, with some brownie bits on top," I tell him. That's a great choice. That's my favorite too. The man says while he makes my ice cream. Is that your house there, Cindy? He said, nodding over to my house. I nodded. Was that a dumb decision? Yes. But when I was younger, it wasn't as widespread to teach your kids about stranger danger. The man then finished making my scoop and handed it to me. My first reaction was to stare at the 2 scoops in front of me. I panicked a bit because I didn't order a second scoop and I don't have the money for that. Excuse me, I didn't. It's okay. The man cut me off and then he said, I gave you an extra one because I think you're very pretty, Cindy. It's gonna be our little secret, okay? He said with a wink, and I just smiled and nodded, giving him the $5 and I take my ice cream, just happy because I got an extra scoop. I waved goodbye to the ice cream man and I walked back inside. Thinking back, the man didn't drive off until I was inside. He just waited there. I don't know what he was doing since my back was turned to him as I went inside, but I can only assume that he was watching me. So, I went inside with my prize, thoroughly enjoying it, when my mother came in the room and asked, 2 scoops. Did you save up yourself? She said as she ruffled my hair. Very responsible little girl. I shook my head no. I said, The new ice cream man gave me a free scoop. He said that I was pretty. Her eyebrows scrunched and her lips pursed a bit. I realized now that she was concerned about the situation, seeing it weird how a fully grown man was calling an 8-year-old that he never met before pretty. Tell you what, Cindy, next time you want ice cream, you tell me and I'll get it for you, okay? My mom said. The request seemed odd, but if I got my ice cream, I didn't really care. But what about the flavors? I asked her, wanting to get good ice cream. There were always bad ones in the ice cream truck, and I did end up getting a SpongeBob popsicle. They tasted like Pepto-Bismol. My mom then reassured me, I've been raising you for 8 years. I know you're a chocolate girl. I shrugged and agreed, more focused on my ice cream than that conversation. Mom wanted to get my ice cream instead? Makes life easier for me. So the next time that I heard the ice cream truck, I told my mother, and she went to go buy my ice cream, and all was well in the world for a time. And it kept like that for about a week. When the gifts started arriving, the mailbox for our house was by the road, and every once in a while, there would be a gift inside, a cute bow or some stickers. Once, there were little dolls stuffed into the mailbox. I was excited to see these things, because who wouldn't? But my mother seemed to grow more and more upset with each gift that came, and she would throw them away rather than let me have them. It took a while, but my mother put 2 and 2 together, realizing that the gifts only came on days when the ice cream truck came by our street. So the next time the truck came by, she went out to talk to the man. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I could tell that they were yelling. And after that, my mother didn't get ice cream from that truck anymore, just buying it at the store instead. Whenever she heard the music from the truck, she would simply stand by the window and watch. And when she saw the man get out of his van to our mailbox, she and my dad came out of the house and confronted him. My dad was really aggressive that day, pushing and shoving the ice cream man back into his truck. And after that, the ice cream truck didn't come to our neighborhood anymore. But the gift still came, so my mother decided to spend the day looking at the mailbox. She told me when I was older what she saw. the ice cream man, out of uniform, just driving up to our mailbox in a regular old car and putting the gift in. At that point, she had had it. She called the police about it and together, along with my father, decided to file a restraining order against the guy. It was a lot harder to find him then than they initially thought because ice cream trucks weren't part of some big company or organization. They were individually owned freelance things that people can buy and do. All you needed was a vendor's license. But eventually, the police did find the man and gave him the order to stay away. It might be a bit of an overreaction, but after that, I never had any ice cream. The part about anyone can do it and didn't even need a background check to do a job that primarily revolves around being near children just feels wrong to me. So if you are ever getting ice cream from a van, be careful. You never know who is on the other side. Hey everyone, this is your creepy sister. Thank you so much for watching the video. I do hope you enjoyed it. Also, don't forget to leave a like and a comment. It really helps the channel out. A big shout out to both my channel members and Patreon members. Thank you so much for taking your support to the next level. You guys are great. And again, to everyone, stay scared because your fear feeds me.